I'm Emily, and in about 1 month, I'll be stepping foot on the Appalachian Trail to start my through hike. And I'm a type 1 diabetic, so there's a lot of gear that I'm taking because of my diabetes. So today I wanted to show you my diabetes-specific gear that I'll be taking on the Appalachian Trail. And the first section of this is going to be gear that I use in my everyday life. Well, I guess supplies rather. Medical supplies that I already use that I'm going to be taking with me, and kind of how I'm adapting them to take them on the trail. And then the second section is going to be backpacking gear that other thru hikers might be taking with them, but that I've chosen specifically because I'm a type 1 diabetic. So, as a diabetic, the most important thing is my insulin. Without insulin, I basically would die. Insulin is what breaks down the food that I eat into energy, and it keeps my blood sugar levels down. So if I don't have enough insulin, my blood sugar levels will be elevated and I could eventually go into a coma. That's basically the short story of the insulin. But so for insulin, I use about a vial every month in my normal life. And typically when I am more active, I use less insulin. So I'm expecting a vial to last a little bit more than a month. And something that is super important about insulin is that it cannot get hot. If this gets hot, it will denature and then it won't work as well. So I would need more insulin in order to bring my blood sugars down. So basically, long story short, I need a way to keep this cold while on trail. And this was one of the biggest hurdles for me, and one of the things that I kind of knew the least about, because I was like looking up other thru hikers who've hiked the Appalachian Trail or other long trails with diabetes, and not too many of them had a good solution for this. One person I remember was just like, I kind of shoved my insulin in between my clothes in the bottom of my bag and hoped that it stayed out of the sun and that it stayed cool enough. And in the middle of summer, I don't really trust that. So I ended up finding this product. It's called a Thru, and it is a case that is made specifically for insulin, and it's made to keep it cold. So basically, instead of using an ice pack, it uses this little pouch that goes inside. So this pouch is made of like crystals, so you get these wet. You can use any type of water. So on trail I'll use a stream or a puddle, a lake, whatever it is. You have to get this wet every 48 hours, and it activates the little crystals inside, and then that is what is able to keep a cooling, has a cooling effect somehow, and is able to keep the insulin cold. So this can be reused again and again. So on trail, I'll just make sure to get this wet every few days, and hopefully that'll be able to keep my insulin cold enough throughout the entire summer. So in this little pouch, I'll be carrying 2 vials of insulin, and I have these little cases on my insulin, so even though it's glass, they won't break or anything. So I'll be carrying 2 vials of insulin, which this is the insulin that I'll be using to put in my insulin pump, and I'm expecting for this insulin to last me a month. So for 2 vials, I should be able to go 2 months. I will also be bringing long-acting insulin. So this is for emergencies only. Basically, if my insulin pump were to stop working, I would be able to use this as a backup. So that'll be going into my cooling case too. And with this here, it's called an insulin pen. So there's these little caps that go on it. So if for some reason my insulin pump were to fail, I would take a shot with this once every 24 hours. So I'll be bringing 5 of these little needles. So worst case scenario, I can be in town in 5 days and get my insulin pump fixed, or get to a pharmacy and buy more of these little caps. And I will also be taking, for my insulin, some syringes. So this is also for if my insulin pump fails and I need to take insulin manually. I would use these syringes and use a vial of insulin that I have to take insulin when I eat and when my blood sugar is high, basically. And for my insulin pump, I actually don't know which one I'm going to take. I'm in a weird position where I have 2 insulin pumps that I could choose from, which never happens. Normally, there's insurance is crazy, and they don't let you have 2 pumps at once, but somehow I was able to get the supplies for this pump and the supplies for a different pump. Anyways, I am currently using the T-Slim insulin pump, which is a tubed insulin pump. And I also have the Omnipod, which is a wireless, tubeless insulin pump. And originally, like a few months ago, I went to my doctor and I was like, hey, I want to try out the Omnipod because I'm going to be backpacking and doing an Appalachian Trail through hike. And in my brain, this is a lot more compact. And this would be easier and more sterile to clean and change my insulin pump site on trail. Because basically, it's just this big pod is what it's called. And you stick it on your arm, or I normally do it on my stomach. And you have a separate device that is the pump, and you're able to inject it from this device. So the needle is never exposed to the elements, and you stick it like a sticker, you push the button, and it shoots it into your arm, and then you're good to go. But I have been testing this out for the past few months, and it uses a lot of battery life. Like, this thing has to be charged super often. And that is something that really concerns me. I don't want this to die in the middle of the woods and to not be able to take my insulin because of it. So they're supposed to be coming out with an app. And they keep saying 2024, but they haven't told us when, because that's how diabetes companies normally are. So hopefully the app will come out and then I'll be able to use the Omnipod system on trail without having to carry that. So that's kind of one of my options. The other option that I'm leaning towards right now is to stick with the T-Slim insulin pump, which is the wired insulin pump. And basically, there's a few different parts to this, so it would be a little bit more to carry. But I think these are lighter. So this is where the insulin goes. And then there's a little like infusion set that gets attached to my body, which kind of shows what it looks like. And then there's a needle to fill the cartridge. So in a perfect world, it's recommended that you change this all every 3 days. But theoretically, with this pump, I can keep it on for longer. So I can go 4 or 5 days before I decide to change this and not really experience any adverse effects. That's just how it works for my body. I don't recommend it, but that is something I've seen work for me. With the Omnipod, on the other hand, I would have to change it every 3 days. And it has like a timer built in, so once that time is up, you have to change it. So it's a lot less flexible, where if I miscalculate or if I'm on trail for longer, I could not extend this as long as I need to. So, long story short, I don't know if any of that made sense to people who aren't diabetics, but I am planning on starting with the T-Slim insulin pump. I think that's what I'm going to do. Start with this pump and see how I like it. I'm going to be carrying enough to change this theoretically every 3 days. And then I'll be carrying not a lot of these because I can reuse the cartridges, which again isn't recommended, but it'll cut down on weight and such. And I also won't be taking all the syringes because those can also be, I found that I can reuse them. You're not supposed to reuse them, but I found that they can be reused. So I think I'm going to start with that. My only concern is this packaging. If you can see, this is just, the needle is right here. And this plastic is it's not very hard plastic. And I'm worried about the needles bending, but I think if I'm careful with it, And if, I don't know, I think I'll be okay. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think I'm gonna start with this pump at the beginning of the trail. And if at some point during the summer the Omnipod app comes out and I don't have to take this phone with me, I will switch over to the Omnipod and see which one I like more. I don't know. I'm kind of treating this as an experiment, which could be seen as risky to some people, but I'm used to my diabetes and I kind of know how different things handle with my body, and I plan on doing a lot more backpacking throughout my life. So if I can kind of experiment a little bit and figure out for myself and potentially other diabetics who want to go backpacking what the best system is, then I'm going to take that opportunity to. And in addition to my insulin pump, another thing that is a device that I'm going to have is my Dexcom sensor. So this is a continuous glucose monitor, which means that instead of having to prick my finger, I wear this on my arm and it tells me what my blood sugar is every 5 minutes. So this is something that I absolutely love and absolutely will not go without, despite the fact that it's giant and bulky. But I like knowing when I'm on trail, or even literally whenever. It's so nice to know that my blood sugar is going low or going high. Like, it connects to my phone and to my pump, and it'll alert me so that I can make informed decisions on my diabetes and make sure that I'm keeping my diabetes in check, which is super important to me. And these sensors last 10 days. And again, a lot of diabetics will do this. We figured out how to extend them beyond the timer. So even though this will expire after 10 days, I can normally get 20 days out of a sensor. So I'll be carrying enough sensors to kind of factor that in. And with the sensor, I will be bringing these over patches because sometimes, especially after 10 or 20 days, the adhesive starts to peel if it's hot, I sweat a lot, whatever it might be. So this is a little patch that I can put over it, and that'll help it stay on my arm a little bit longer. I hope this makes sense because, like I said, I've been diabetic since I was 6 years old, so I'm used to this, and I'm used to this technology, and I don't know, I don't really have to explain it to non-diabetics a lot, or just the people in my life. They either know that I'm used to it and they kind of just let me do it, or they kind of just have observed and I've taught them over time. So trying to explain this all is a little bit challenging, but if you have any questions, let me know. So yeah, that's all of like the diabetes specific supplies and gear that I'm going to be taking. Something that I'm not going to be taking, kidding. Another diabetes supply that I'm going to be taking with me is a glucagon. And glucagon is basically an emergency low blood sugar treatment. So if my blood sugar were to go really, really low and I was unable to take food or drink something in order to bring it up, I would be given this like emergency treatment to help raise my blood sugar. So if I end up finding hiking partners or a trampoline to hike with, I will be telling them about it just so they know where it is and how to administer it. You're supposed to carry this as a diabetic all the time. I do not, because I've never been in a situation where I needed to take glucagon. Luckily, my blood sugar has never gotten so low where I couldn't handle it myself. But I don't want to put myself in an unsafe situation by not taking it. And another very irrational fear that I have is that all of my food is going to be eaten or stolen by a bear or mice. And if that were to happen and my blood sugar were to go low, I want to have a backup. So I'm taking it both in case of an emergency where my blood sugar goes super duper low, and in case of an emergency where I wake up in the morning and a bear has eaten all my food. But that kind of brings me into food storage and some of the other backpacking related things that I've chosen because of my diabetes. So for food storage on the Appalachian Trail, I have decided to go with an Ursac, which is kind of, I don't know, not very unique. I feel like a lot of people take Ursacs, but the most common food storage system on the trail is to have just a dry bag like this that you fill with your food, and then you throw it up in a tree at night. And that's a good, effective system, and there's nothing wrong with that system. But there was this one time my boyfriend and I went on a backpacking trip, and in the middle of the night my blood sugar dropped, which when I have a low blood sugar I need to eat food in order to raise it. And all of our food was in a bear bag in the woods. So one of us had to get out of the tent, go get the food down from the bear hang, get a snack out for me so I didn't go too low, then bring it back up and come back in the tent. Basically, it was kind of a hassle, and luckily my boyfriend was there, so he was able to go do that for me. But sometimes when I have a low blood sugar, like, basically time is of the essence, and I don't want to be putting myself in a situation where I have to remember where I hung my food. I have to figure out how to get it down, because your brain, your mental state is altered. So I don't want to have to go through all those motions to get to food if I'm having a low blood sugar. So I'm gonna have an Ursac that you basically just tie around the base of a tree, and it's a lot easier to access and open up in case I need to grab something in the middle of the night. And I don't expect to ever have to grab something, because I am also going to be taking a smell-proof bag, which this is for something else, if you know what I mean, but my boyfriend got it for me, and it is just a bag that I can put a few snacks in to keep in my tent at night and not have to worry about bears coming to attack my food in my tent if I have food in it. Which I know a lot of people will sleep with their dry bags. All on the Appalachian Trail, people will literally just put their food in a bag like this and sleep with it. And as someone who, I don't know, I like to think of myself as being more environmentally cautious, and whatever, you do what works for you. I'm not going to knock people who do that, but personally, I am not comfortable with sleeping with food in my tent without being in something that's smell-proof. So I have this bag that's a little bit heavier, but I think it'll be a bit better because it'll be able to hold up to the entire hike. My other option, if I decide not to take the heavier smell-proof bag, is to take an OPSAC, which is basically like a extra strong Ziploc bag that's airtight that is also smell-proof. So I'm going to be taking one of those things to keep in my tent with me, and that will just hold a few snacks in case my blood sugar goes low in the middle of the night, and I can just eat it quickly and go back to bed without having to get up, take down the bear bag, and do all the things. But if for whatever reason I don't have enough snacks in my tent, basically, I'll be using the Ursac so that I can easily access them. I'm also going to be carrying snacks. As a diabetic, you always have to have snacks in case your blood sugar goes low. Fruit snacks are my favorite low blood sugar snack, but I kind of predict that I'm going to switch to something like pixie sticks when I'm on trail, just because I can carry more of those for less weight and they have more sugar in them. But I kind of always have to carry more food than I think I'm going to need, because I never want to be in a situation where my blood sugar is low and I don't have something to treat it with. That would just be putting myself in a super unsafe situation. So even if I'm packing for a 5-day food carry, I'm going to bring probably 6 days worth of food or just a bunch of extra snacks to make sure that my blood sugar never goes too low. And then I'm going to be bringing camp shoes, which I know it's pretty common for people to bring camp shoes, but some people in the ultralight community will not bring camp shoes to save weight. But as a diabetic, I'll be bringing camp shoes. I found the lightest, thinnest pair of sandals that I could find, and these will be great for water crossings and also for giving my feet a little bit of a break at night. And as a type 1 diabetic, foot care is super important. I'm not going to get into why, but basically you have to take good care of your feet in order to stay healthy, and part of how I plan to take care of my feet is by having camp shoes. Yeah, that's basically everything that I'm going to be bringing. I plan on putting my diabetes supplies kind of just in a dry bag like this. With all of my other toiletries, and I plan on taking probably a 3-week to 1 month supply of pump supplies at a time. So it's kind of confusing, but I'm going to be coming home a few times throughout the summer. So my plan is to take however much insulin I'm going to need between the time that I leave and the time that I'm going to be home. That way my insulin can stay cold the whole time and I don't have to worry about it being mailed and getting too warm. So I'll take as much insulin as I'm going to need, so I never have to worry about resupplying my insulin. And then I will have my parents or my sibling, my sister, or someone mail me pump supplies as needed. And we'll go from there. I don't have more of a plan than that. We'll see how it goes, and I'm totally ready to adapt on the fly. I've been dealing with diabetes for so long that I know what works for my body, and I know how to get supplies if I need to, and I don't know. I think I'll be alright. So that is my grand plan, which is not really a plan at all. I hope that video made a lick of sense to anyone, because the more I'm talking, the more I'm feeling like I'm not making any sense, but hopefully this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any diabetes related questions in the comments below, and yeah, that's all I really got for today. So I will see you in the next video, and happy hiking. Happy blood sugars for all you diabetics.